Hello and welcome back. Now, one of the most common questions that I get asked is how often should I treat my leather boots, my leather jacket, my leather goods in general? And depending on what it is in your usage, that can really depend. So, what I wanted to do in this video is ask an expert. Now, Dave Himel is probably among the top people you would ever want to ask any question about leather jackets. And I had the good fortune of sitting down with him, although me being in the United States and him being in Canada. We recorded it on both ends and I spliced together our conversation. So I had the good fortune to ask Dave, how often should people condition and treat their leather jackets? Dave Himel began his career in the vintage clothing, dealing industry. So he's had his hands on more leather jackets than most people could ever dream of. And as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he has one of the largest collections of vintage leather jackets anywhere. So this guy knows his stuff. After that, he went ahead and began his own company, Himel Brothers. I own one of their jackets. It is phenomenal. A lot of this stuff, it's really a grail piece for a lot of people. So, of anybody, somebody who's handled many, many thousands of leather jackets, somebody who has made some of the most coveted leather jackets in the world, is probably the right guy to ask this question. So that's what I did. The one thing I want to talk about, and I know Parker brought this up too because it's a question you guys get a lot, is about care and how to maintain your jacket. And I have my opinion, but I'm interested in hearing yours because this is about you. So what do you think is a good care routine and schedule for jackets?
Okay, so I am like a product tester for things, right? You give me anything, I will break it, destroy it. If there's a flaw in it, it will. It could be a piece of furniture, a car, electronics. For some, my karma is I can find what's wrong with something so quick just by using it, and I burn through clothes. Denim brands, my favorite. The guys I work with in LA, Freenote, they give me jeans. I give them back to them 2 years later, and they're like, "What did you do to these things, man? Like, how are they so worn out?" And I'm like, I just work in them, So, so you understand my philosophy on care is very limited. I was the vintage dealer that if I found a dead stock 1930s overall, I'd just wear it. I wasn't the, never wash it, never wear it, then put it back in a vacuum sealed box guy. Because I always, sometimes I regret it. The jeans I'm wearing right now are like 1947 GWGs, and they're reaching their last days, and I want to keep them forever, but because I ain't going to be able to find another pair. But I am who I am, so I wear them and I put them in the wash. Leather jackets. If you're the kind of guy that wants to keep your jacket pristine, then if you get a scratch or a nick in it, you can put color back in there. Jackets are coated with dye or paint or dye-in paint, so you can always recolor them with dye or paint if you're really creative and you know how to work with that stuff. It's not that hard. If you're the kind of guy who likes wear, then if you want a really cool worn down jacket, wear it all the time. Wear it when you're building your shed. Wear it when you go for a walk in the woods. Wear it when you're out in the rain, and you'll end up with something pretty amazing. And the general purpose leather jacket is not going to get damaged by doing all that stuff. It's going to get some scratches, it's going to lose some paint or some dye, it's going to fold up, but it's going to get better looking with age. And because of that, when someone asks me, well, what should I do to care for my jacket? I'm like, I don't know, beat the hell out of it, right? People say, should I oil them? Should I wash them? Should I, apply some sort of product on them. And if you got something on your jacket that you didn't like, as long as it hasn't absorbed into the jacket, like oils will absorb into a jacket, I say take a damp cloth, a little bit of dish soap. Some people use Murphy's oil soap or something like that, and just wipe it down. And that's it. Because, my experience with vintage jackets was until they get to about 60, 70 years and they start to dry out, you don't really need to put anything on them. I mean, I've had some pretty dry vintage jackets, so I take some beef fat, and keep in mind, like 99.9% of leather treatments are all the same stuff. They're cow fat, beef oil, because it's cow leather or horse leather, and wax. Sometimes they're just beef fat, sometimes they're beef fat and wax. And that's it. There really isn't much more in them. The wax sort of lets the oil seep in a little slower, puts a sort of wax seal like shoe polish on top of the jacket. And the beef oil has a lot of water weight, so leather is skin, it has fibers. The oils, the milder oils like beef fat will go in and fill up any dry or spaces in those fibers, and then they'll eventually dry out and they won't darken the leather. If you start getting into other kinds of oils, neat's foot oil, that kind of stuff, it'll darken the leather. It has a more viscous, oily quality to it and less water, and it'll change the character of the oil. If you have a real dry, stiff jacket and you use a real strong oil like neat's foot oil, it'll soften it up, but it'll darken the jacket and take away the patina, right? So when I talk about leather care, I talk about leather restoration. For other people, they're like, well, what should I do to care for your jackets? I'm like, wear them, wipe them off, call me in 50 years if I'm still alive and I'll give you some advice, right? But that's generally it, right?
So sure.
What's your philosophy on this stuff?
I think guys get all together too fussy. I understand it. They just spent a good amount of money and they want to know how to best take care of their investment. But they forget that, and this goes for a lot of boots and shoes too, that these things are incredibly robust, that they can take a lot of punishment, more than most modern day people will put on them. So unless you live in some really dramatic climates where the sun is beating on them all the time and it does get dry, or if you're going from wet to dry and it's really breaking them down, I mean, I think if you do an annual conditioning in places where you may need it, that's probably the most you want to do, because you also don't want to oversaturate leather either. Now, if you're interested, I will be posting the entire interview, our entire conversation, which was over an hour long, on this channel at some point. So if you want to watch it, we get into details on the leather jackets. We get into a lot more than just conditioning. But I wanted to break out this one part because I think it would bring a lot of people a lot of value. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Catch you next time.